Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Yes, my cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right. Welcome back. It's Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, live from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, where it's starting to look like fall. Yeah, we're getting back into those upper 60s, lower 70s temperatures. Gray clouds all day. This is about the time of year when all those Californians who moved here in like May start going, hey, what is this shit? This sucks. Wait till January, fellas. You're going to love it. Oh, so glad to be back. Thank you for being patient with me, folks. I'm sorry to have taken 3 days off. I know how so many of you set your clock to come listen live and kind of rearrange your schedules around it. And I hate to leave you high and dry, but oh my God, was I sick. Oh, geez. I have to be pretty sick to not do a show. Got to tell you, folks. This is show number, 829? Is this show 829? I got to go look in the... Let's go look in the old file folder there. I think it is, though. So it's not like I am want to lack to doing shows or anything. Yeah, no, this is 830. Show number 830 today. So, yeah, the only two things that'll stop me from doing a show is if my brain doesn't work or my voice doesn't work, and neither one of them. I don't know if you can hear it. I still have a little bit in my voice just from being so sick, but it's not good for the vocal cords. But man, my brain wouldn't work either, man. I was having these terrible cramps and my head's all foggy and I couldn't type. I literally having cramps so bad I couldn't type. My fingers were cramping up on me. I don't know what's going on with me, but we're hoping it's over. And we're back here for more of this marijuana news coverage because we are now in the home stretch, people. We are in the home stretch for election 2016. There's going to be a couple presidential debates coming up here not too far away. That ought to be entertaining as hell. I see Governor Gary Johnson and Jill Stein are still nowhere near the 15% they need to make it to the debates. I just say that because I got so many people that are, going back to me doing my Hillary switch and all that kind of stuff that are still so, strongly supporting Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, which is great. But I kind of think it's funny because I think Jill Stein is actually costing Gary Johnson some of the poll standing that he could use to get into the debates. Because you add up the polls between between Johnson and Stein, add them together, they're pretty consistently around the 15% mark. If they were one person, if they were Governor Dr. Jilly Steinson, right? If it was one person, they could get that 15% they need to make the ballot or to make the debates. So it's kind of ironic that for so many years, we talk about the third party candidate being the spoiler for one of the two party candidates, that this year a fourth party candidate could be the spoiler for the third party candidate. That's amazing to me, man. And of course, I don't mean any ill will toward Stein or Johnson. There's a lot in both of their platforms I agree with more than the two mainstream candidates. But just like a marijuana legalization initiative that doesn't make the ballot, it doesn't matter how great the platform is, doesn't matter how great the initiative is, if it don't make the ballot, it don't matter. And folks, I'm sorry, but the math dictates that we live in a two-party system now. And the structure has been solidified. We can hate it, we can work to change it, we can think it sucks, we can cast all sorts of aspersions about it, but it is the system we're in. And in that system, either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump is going to be president. And I sure don't want it to be Donald Trump. Anyway, a brief foray into the politics. We're going to go back into marijuana. Right after the break, we're going to talk about the price of weed in legal states.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Every strain, every sale, every medical study. Keep it right here on the Cannabis Radio Network. Cash?
Sorry.
I don't carry around cash, and I don't want to use the ATM and pay surcharges.
You don't need to carry cash. Haven't you heard about PayQuick?
Okay, tell me about PayQuick.
It's the safe and easy way to pay. It works just like your debit card to securely pay for your purchase, and it gives you rewards points every time you use it.
Nice.
PayQuick, the safe and easy way to pay. PayQuick.com.
Tommy Chong is ready to cut through the smoke and change the tone of Tilk Radio.
You're going to be a
great-granddad. Pretty cool. Morgan is Ray Dawn's son. Morgan and his wife Tracy, they've been trying to have a baby for quite some time. Did you hear what I said to Morgan?
What?
Do you know who the father is?
The Tommy Chong Podcast, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome to my world.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment.
Okay, maybe you're high, too.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argosville. What are you smoking there, boy? This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 9 after the hour here in beautiful legal Potland. And we're taking a look at some finance data. This is coming from Business Insider. Jeremy Burke has written, "The price of pot is tumbling in Colorado." Music to my ears. This is some data they got from Tradiv. Tradiv is a online marijuana distribution platform. Their director of sales, John Manlove, love that name, has said, quote, "In less than a year, we've seen wholesale prices drop to nearly half of their previous totals. We've never seen prices like this," end quote. And what are those prices? Well, last October, the cost of a wholesale pound of cannabis in Colorado was $2,400 to $2,600. That price is down to $1,400 to $1,600 last month. $1,400 a pound. $1,600 a pound, folks, is $100 an ounce. Yeah, we are starting to get those prices that low. And the reason why is we've got more and more growers growing more and more canopy. It's just simple supply and demand. We've got so much supply now that a huge amount of marijuana is hitting the market in Colorado, and the prices just keep going down. And this is a good thing. Now, I know growers out there don't like to hear this. I know people that are investing a lot of money into dispensaries don't want to hear this, but you better hear it because it's inevitable. At least in a place like Colorado, where there is no set canopy limit. Now, in Washington State, they do have a set canopy limit. And that just means that throughout the whole state, there can only be so much cannabis that is grown. So many square feet. 13 million or whatever the number is, but there can only be so much. But even trying to artificially restrict the supply is not working. Because in Washington State, they have seen the price of retail cannabis drop from anywhere from $20 to $30 a gram to an average below $10 a gram. Wholesale prices, $2.99 a gram. $3 a gram, workout times 28 grams, quick, do the math, is not that expensive. It's 70, 81 bucks, something like that. So legalization is quite clearly bringing the price of marijuana down. And you're going to have public policy people like Mark Kleiman who are going to be calling for canopy limits, who are going to be calling for these artificial restrictions. And they're going to call for it based on the idea that if pot gets too cheap, too many people will smoke it. Too many people will smoke it too often. And we've got to stop them for their own damn good. But this news coming out of Colorado and Washington is great for us consumers. And as we see more states coming legal, especially, oh my God, when California becomes legal. And they're starting out for the first 5 years of California, or till 2020, I think. First 4 years of not issuing any grows larger than an acre or 22,500 square feet indoors. They got a cap. They're not going to do any mega grows, unlimited size grows. Not going to do any of those for the first 4 years. So, some of the smaller growers can get themselves established. After 2020, when you're allowed to grow as large a cannabis farm in California as permitted, and who knows how large that's going to be, folks, we are going to see a drop in cannabis prices that is going to take old hippies back to the day. Back in my day, we used to buy it for $5 an ounce. You might get back to that day. Maybe not $5. There's still going to be taxes. There's still going to be fees. There's going to be a certain floor at which cannabis prices cannot drop any lower. But for these different states that legalize, trying to maintain their own canopy limits when they're next door to states that don't have canopy limits is going to prove fruitless. Washington State's got a big surprise coming up for it as Oregon's grows, recreational grows, get to be licensed and start to grow. And once Californians come online, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, for any state to try to maintain an artificial marijuana economy. And the other thing that's going to be good about this, a couple of things. One is that report that we just got from National Survey on Drug Use and Health, talking about how despite the fact we legalized and more adults are using more often, more kids are not, and fewer people are having drug addiction problems, having marijuana dependence problems for that matter. So Kleiman and his ilk, their argument about, oh my God, if the pot becomes too cheap, people will use it too much, starts to fall on deaf ears because already the price has become much cheaper and already more people have been using it and already we're not seeing more harm. In fact, less harm. So what argument will remain to try to artificially restrict the canopy space? If adults are going to smoke pot, let them smoke pot. This is one of the things these public policy people don't get is they don't get that marijuana leaves you alone. This was an old routine by George Carlin, I remember. And I don't remember it exactly, but the basic idea, the gist of it, is pot's the cool drug. Pot's your friend. Mary Jane's your friend. Like, you want to hang out with Mary Jane? Mary Jane's cool with that. You don't want to hang out with Mary Jane? Mary Jane's cool with that. Cocaine, meth, heroin, they ain't so cool with it. Alcohol, they ain't so cool with it. They want you to hang out. They're that kind of pal that, comes over when you don't want him to come over, doesn't get the hint when to leave, always wants to drag you out to the latest party. That's those kind of drugs. And these people, and I don't blame them sometimes, because really for a lot of them, the only deep understanding they have of any drug is alcohol. And so if your only understanding of drugs was alcohol, yeah, you'd treat pot the way these people are trying to treat pot. You even hear it in their rhetoric when they talk about, their reluctance, like, oh, well, alcohol, it's already culturally ingrained, it's too late. But why should we let there be a third drug? They've actually got the attitude that like we could prevent more harm by having fewer drugs. And we've got to eliminate as much of that drug use as we possibly can, because to them, it's as bad as alcohol. And they see all the terrible stuff happening from alcohol, the drunk driving, the arrests and the abuse and the domestic problems and all the cirrhosis and death that we get from alcohol. And so to them, not knowing what pot is or what it does or how it affects people, I can see why maybe they think it's so evil it needs to be restricted. Because they can't differentiate. They have no idea. It's like if your only exposure to a dog had been one of Michael Vick's beat up pit bulls that attacks you on sight, you might be skittish of pit bulls from that point on. And with drugs, the drug that's legal, alcohol, if you could make the list as like, if we could start over, and the goal was, let's pick the worst drug for society and let's make that one legal, you'd have picked alcohol. That's the one that would be, we couldn't have picked a worse drug to be the legal drug. So that's the snarling, angry pit bull drug that these people have their first experience with, or only understanding of. And so when the nice, calm, loving pit bull called marijuana comes up, they think it's the same snarling dog. And that's what leads them into this irrational thinking. But data is going to beat them out on that, because this is why we've always been on our side, is because we smoke pot and we know it's cool. And we know even the guy we know who was a little too much of a stoner, right? Just a little too much. Even that guy ain't a drunk, ain't a tweaker. He's not causing serious problems to other folks. He might not be achieving everything he can in his own life, but it's not the worst thing you ever seen, right? So we know, we've been smoking for so long that we know that even the worst stoner out there isn't really a problem to society. And there's very few of us that are those kind of stoners. Most of us are the guys that, like I did for years and years and years, got up early in the morning, went to a 9-to-5 job, got done with work, came home and loaded a bowl. Corporate stoners. There's a lot of us out there. There's a lot of you out there. And so we're going to get more and more evidence that backs up what we already know. These great headlines that are going to come out from the Washington Post and USA Today and New York Times. Can you believe it? Another study says this and that. And we're like, yeah, we believe it. That's quite obvious. We're going to continue to drop this price of marijuana. We're going to continue to get not just a lack of the bad predictions coming true, but a surfeit of good unintended predictions coming true. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. Some data on marijuana and the workplace. That old canard about pot smokers are lazy. It'll cause unproductivity in the workplace. We'll lose productivity. We're going to talk about that. And all the other things that we're finding. I mean, my God, none of us predicted that there would be a decrease in suicides in medical marijuana states. None of us were, or few of us were predicting there would be less opiate overdoses. I mean, we were saying, it could help people in pain, but we're getting all sorts of good news out of cannabis that a lot of us that are even huge proponents of it weren't expecting. And that's why it makes it difficult. Some people ask, when do you think it'll finally be legal? And you have to first pin them down on what does that mean? What does finally mean? All the states completely legal, no marijuana crimes at all? I may never live to see that.
It all goes to show you that it's always something.
That breaks my heart. Of course, we lost Gene Wilder to Alzheimer's disease this week. And, of course, Gene was so in love with his third wife, Gilda Radner, who died of ovarian cancer. Two of the funniest people we've ever seen taken by something cannabis can help. Happy 420.
We have your smoking section right here. This is the Cannabis Radio Network.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
And blue blasten Gergen, Pfaffen der Blasten, Schnurb Norben. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you all had a good 420 break. So we were talking earlier about corporate stoners. I was one for a long, long time. Worked in IT, wore a suit to work. I taught corporate audiences. I taught people in suits while I was wearing a suit. Like suit squared. But there's some interesting data that I wanted to cover. A new study, new research from the Journal of Health Economics. And the question here is whether or not legalizing marijuana is bad for the workplace. This, of course, is from the Institute for a Drug-Free Workplace, who says, quote, "The impact of employee marijuana use is seen in the workplace in lower productivity, increased workplace accidents and injuries, increased absenteeism, and lower morale. This can and does seriously impact the bottom line." Well, no. First of all, I was one of those employees, like I said, working there, and I was one of the most productive employees you could possibly ever want to have. I've got the reviews to show it. I've got the time cards that show me clocking in early and taking off late. I've got the work that shows working through many lunches at my desk. I was a dedicated and productive as hell employee, and I resented every time someone would bring up the drug-free workplace argument when I could look outside my workplace and there was a shelter. Because we're in Portland, Oregon, right? Rains a lot. There's a shelter out there built with company funds for the tobacco smokers. They want to sit and tell me that my pot smoking after work is somehow a productivity drain when these people are taking 20-minute breaks every 2 hours to go smoke out in some shelter that you paid for. So, yeah, don't give me the productivity argument. The accidents and injuries part, no. I don't see that. Increased absenteeism? No, we don't see that. Lower morale? Hell, some jobs suck so much you have to be a stoner just to be able to handle working at these places. It's not like they issue a whole lot of brownie points with the paper hat, right? You know, do you like fries with that? But there's this new study. It's in health economics. An economist from University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee wanted to know what medical marijuana laws did to employee absenteeism rates. So there's been some study on marijuana just in general on this. There was a 2014 paper, and this was just on illicit marijuana use, right? Everybody's pot use. Found that most marijuana use has little effect on workplace productivity. Little effect. Chronic or heavy pot use can be a problem. But yeah, here we're talking about somebody who's smoking all the time, maybe not able to handle it as well. But they say on net, the paper concludes, quote, "It is simply uncertain as to whether there are negative labor market consequences of drug use in general and cannabis use in particular," end quote. But that's more generally speaking. This new research from the guy from University of Wisconsin took a look at what happened in medical marijuana states and what happened to their sick days according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics current population survey. So, what happened? When medical marijuana was legalized, did more people get stoned and call in sick because they're just too high to go to work? Or did people get relief from their medical conditions and actually were able to show up to work more? Well, they took a look. And what he found is in the 24 states that had legalized medical marijuana at the time of his survey, absenteeism, sick day use, dropped 8% among all workers. Down 8% compared to the other states that did not legalize medical marijuana. And they found the effect was more pronounced in the medical marijuana states that had laxer laws, more relaxed laws. Like a California, you had fewer sick days than, say, an Illinois, right? They found it was 13% lower for the workers in the lax medical marijuana states. So what that kind of suggests here is it's not just medical marijuana that makes the absenteeism go down, but greater access to it that makes it go down. I think there's employers out there that think a whole lot of people fake their sick days all the time. And they don't realize that most people don't want to have to use a sick day unless they really need to. And that for a lot of these people, the use of medical marijuana can take from them the need to use OxyContin or some other horrible prescription. I can't tell you how many stories I have of people who got off horrible, horrible regimens of prescription drugs only to use cannabis. And therefore, the side effects from all those terrible prescription drugs, the side effects which were causing them sick days, sometimes more often than their actual ailment, those side effects are gone. And that's what allows people to go back to work more. They also found among the age groups, age 30 to 39, absenteeism went down 15%. Which again, and that's the age, where people are getting their medical marijuana cards. So that again suggests that it's the medical marijuana that's helping here. Now, this is a correlation. It's not a causation. We can't say for sure medical marijuana caused this, but all things are pointing in that direction. Marijuana, medical marijuana, is helping the workplace by helping people get over their ailments, by taking away those terrible side effects that keep them from going to work. And I hope that as we continue with legalization, we do some similar research on the passage of legalization, recreational legalization, and compare the absenteeism rates of the medical marijuana patients versus the recreational cannabis consumers. That will give us even more insight into what's really going on. If it's just a medical issue, if we find that the medical card holders have less absenteeism, but the recreational users stay the same or perhaps get worse, that would tell us that that medical excuse is kind of making sense. That, yeah, we're alleviating a condition and we are taking away side effects, and that's what's leading to less absenteeism. But if we found that the recreational users also had less absenteeism, not only would it bolster some of that medical argument, maybe these people who are recreational users are getting a relief that otherwise they'd be using medicine for, but it may also tell us that it's becoming a substitute for alcohol. We found that there's decreases in the alcohol stats when it comes to these medical marijuana states as well. We found that, where's that number? Looking for that. Sorry, trying to find where that stat was. But the passage of the medical marijuana laws reduce alcohol consumption. We find the states that pass medical marijuana have less alcohol consumption. And since drinking is a big driver of absenteeism, since, it's the hangovers that are making people call in sick on Monday, if recreational consumers show less absenteeism, it might show us that they're choosing more marijuana and less alcohol. And by choosing less alcohol, we're getting more productivity. As these kind of numbers come out, it's going to set up an interesting sort of politics between corporations that want to increase productivity, and they don't make, and some of them that don't make a moral judgment as to whether or not marijuana use is bad or good. They just look at the bottom line, and if somebody shows them numbers that say, hey, medical marijuana might increase our productivity by 8%. Hey, medical marijuana might reduce our company's health care coverage costs, especially prescription drug costs. We may be getting to a point where we start seeing not just the companies that are neutral on, because for a long time we've had companies that have been anti-pot. Lately, they've been kind of neutral on the issue. We might start seeing them become more pro-medical marijuana, more explicit pro-medical marijuana stance from corporations that recognize it's in their best interest. It benefits their shareholders' bottom line by reducing healthcare costs and reducing absenteeism. I mean, it's amazing to me that I'm living long enough to see the arguments made by prohibitionists turned around and used against them. First, it was, what about the children? And we said, okay, what about the children? Showed them kids with epilepsy that use CBD oil. Yeah, what about the children? And now we're getting to use the workplace productivity and healthcare costs argument against them. They're just going to run out of arguments. As we get more of this data in from National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, we start to get some of the 2014, 2015 numbers on traffic fatalities and seeing how those continue to go down even as we legalize. If we can start to show that the adoption of more liberal marijuana laws leads to fewer accidents on the road, maybe as a substitute, as it substitutes for alcohol, it's just going to be a watershed day for us. We're just going to have every argument in our playbook. I'm thrilled at the idea that I'm going to live long enough to get to use these arguments that the prohibitionists have been using against us for so long. I get to use them now against them. That we were right. That when we made those predictions as far back, I remember in 2010 talking about Prop 19 and trying to get it legalized in California. And all the doom and gloom we'd hear from the cops and the sheriffs and the Project Sams of the world. And so far, everything we said, even as far back as 2010, about what would happen when we legalized marijuana, has come true. No more kids are using it than they were using it before. And fewer kids are binge drinking now. And fewer kids are cigarette smoking now. We're having benefits come to us from cannabis that don't even have to do with cannabis, that they benefit prescription drug users and alcohol users and cigarette users. We are winning and it feels so good. It's an amazing time to be a marijuana activist. Now, thank you for being here with me as we go through this journey together. It's going to be a while before we get legalization in Kansas. It's going to be a while before we get the true legalization we want, where nobody is ever punished for the plant. And I'll be there to help you get there. Although I'm running out of voice. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to get something to drink, and we'll be right back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late.
While the feds and state are doing their dance, you still need to transact business and manage your cash. Go professional and let your customers pay with PayQuick. They pay you and they earn rewards points. PayQuick connects to your bank account for free and secures all of your transactions. And with PayQuick, you can pay your producers and processors for free. Plus, it pays to have it because it makes depositing your cash safe and so easy. No cops, no crooks, just compliance and comfort, knowing you have your cannabis business in check with PayQuick. PayQuick, the safe and easy way to pay. PayQuick.com.
CannabisRadio.com keeps you in the know Monday through Friday on air and on demand with Cannabis Radio News, presented with the definitive worldwide news source, the Associated Press. Stay informed with exclusive news on all things cannabis. Cannabis Radio News, live weeknights at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, during the Russ Belville Show, or download the daily podcast exclusively on CannabisRadio.com, as well as iTunes, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. When breaking news happens in the cannabis industry, Cannabis Radio News delivers the details first.
This is the Russ Belville Show, annoying Kevin Sabet since 2012.
Coming soon to a city near you, Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. Get all your cannabis accounting, legal, and compliance questions answered by their knowledgeable panel of industry experts who want to help your cannabis boom. Whether you're a grower, dispensary operator, or a newcomer to the field, your cannabis needs Cannabis Finance Boot Camp. For information on upcoming events, visit CannabisFinanceBootCamp.com.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in here? You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 38 after the hour. I want to talk a little bit about adult marijuana lounges, pot clubs, coffee shops, cannabis cafes, whatever you want to call them. We need them. This has been one of the most frustrating facets. One of the most frustrating facets of marijuana legalization. Getting us a place where we can smoke. It's funny. We have these campaigns. They say, treat marijuana like alcohol. And we get the public behind them. Treat marijuana like alcohol. And then we get it legalized, and the way they think treat marijuana like alcohol means is go smoke your pot in your house and close the curtains and don't let anyone see you. And you better own the house, damn it. It's like those laws back in the Jim Crow South, right? Oh, sure, you black people have the right to vote, but, and then they have the poll tax or the literacy test or whatever the hell. Oh, sure, you got the right to smoke pot, but just nowhere to smoke it. If you're homeless or a tourist or a renter, you've got nowhere to smoke pot. It's not legal to smoke it in public. Can't smoke it in the streets, can't smoke it in the parks, can't smoke it in the bars. And landlords can ban your smoking in their place. So where are you supposed to smoke it? What good does it do us to have the right to purchase possess and grow cannabis if we can't smoke it? And this has just been such a vexing question. And again, it goes back to that the discussion I had earlier, the talk I was saying about how they perceive of marijuana. It's a deadly Schedule I drug, and it's not legal like alcohol, so it must be scary as hell. And they don't for a second question the existence of bars. And that's what's really maddening about this. Every state that's got legal marijuana has hundreds of taverns and pubs and nightclubs and bars. Hundreds of them. Some places you can find multiples on one block. All dispensing alcohol, all dispensing it to people who, some of them drove there, and we don't bat an eye. We just think, oh, well, of course there's bars. People got to have a place to gather and drink. And it just blows my mind that any society that can accept a bar with a parking lot can't get its mind around a pot lounge. What bad thing do you think is going to occur? I guarantee you there's no barroom brawls going on at the pot lounge. There's even if people are getting stoned and driving away, the most stoned of them is a better driver than the guy coming out of the bar. I can show you the studies. So what do they think is the thing going on? What's the terrible thing? The other frustrating thing is that we're talking about pot lounges that are bring your own bud. No alcohol allowed, no tobacco smoking allowed. Just bring your own cannabis into a room with other people to smoke. Oh, God, no, we can't have that. Oh, God, no. We told you the news earlier today of Denver Normal. Their public use initiative didn't get enough signatures. But the one backed by Kayvon Kalahari, the other initiative. So Denver's a weird place, right? It's like Kalahari and Tvert and some other guys. Was it Kalahari the first time or was it Vincente? Whatever. But that same group of people, they put an initiative. They were going to have a public use initiative. It got enough signatures, but they pulled it from the ballot because they thought they could work with the officials. And then in the intervening year, it turned out, nope, nobody's going to work with anybody. Just wanted to delay it. So now they're back, and this is their new initiative, this neighborhood approved one, which would actually be a better one than the Denver Normal one because it would allow any place to have pot. You could have pot at your yoga studio. You could have pot at your museum. You could have pot at your bar, whatever. All you have to do is get backing from your local neighborhood group and get a license. So we'll see what happens in Colorado, at least in Denver. There are some pot lounges outside of Denver in some of the other cities that seem to be operating and not having any problems. Here in Oregon, they added cannabis smoke and cannabis vapor to our Clean Air Act, completely contravening the entire setup for the act, which is, whereas secondhand tobacco smoke has been scientifically shown to be harmful, we're going to add cannabis smoke and cannabis vapor that isn't shown to be harmful. Okay. So, contravening the whole purpose of the act itself, just to shoehorn in cannabis smoke and cannabis vapor as a way of banning public clubs, as a way of shutting down the Cannabis Cafe and the other spot and a couple other places here in Portland that were, bring your own cannabis clubs. There's still one that's open, but they have an outdoor patio. And then Washington State, oh my God, Washington State goes and passes a law that felonizes cannabis clubs. There did this guy, what was his name? In Olympia. Can't remember the club's name, but this guy in Olympia who had his bar, and he had fought with the state of Washington over its tobacco smoking ban by making his second floor a private club for tobacco, right? Well, he did the same thing for cannabis and did that for a while, but yeah, Washington State passed a law that made it a felony, not just to purposefully have a cannabis club like this, but to even incidentally allow it to exist. Like if you just had a regular bar and some people were out in the back patio smoking pot and you knew it was happening, bam, that's a felony. Why? Why is there this terrible social fear of the cannabis club? The latest news comes from Alaska. Now, I've been telling you about Alaska and its potluck events club up in Anchorage, a model of what you'd want a pot club to be. Well lit, large, big plush couches, TVs, video games, board games, a bar stocked with candy. I mean, it's the perfect cannabis lounge. Well, the latest from the Alaska Dispatch News tells us that Alaska's Attorney General, Jana Lindemuth, wrote an opinion that said that those clubs are illegal. She says, quote, if that place is not a licensed retail marijuana store, consuming marijuana there is unlawful, end quote. Now, this is an interesting quirk in Alaska's law. Alaska's law does allow for the possibility of licensed stores to have consumption. No other states allowed that yet, but your pot shop in Alaska might be able to have its own little side lounge for consumption. But since these places aren't selling pot, they can't let people smoke it. That's right. Because people are bringing it on their own, and it's their own that they are legally allowed to have, and they're legally allowed to share with other people. They can't do it in a building where they're all together. Not unless that building is selling pot. It's just crazy. So here's some of the rest of this opinion. Part of it is that if a business is providing, if the club is providing free samples, and that club is giving samples from out that total more than an ounce, then that club is in violation of the 1 ounce possession limit. So, for example, they held an event, potluck events, for a strain debut called Arctic Blue. I got to meet the grower, Dave, who grows this strain called Arctic Blue. If Dave shows up and brings a lot of that Arctic Blue to the club, then he's in violation of having more than an ounce. Or the club's in violation of having more than an ounce. Now, if somehow Dave had gotten people over to his house where he's allowed to possess more and given each of them an ounce, and then all of them went to the club at the same time with their individual ounces and gave them away to... You see how crazy this is? It's just crazy. The Attorney General from Alaska also writes that if someone has to pay a membership fee to get into the club, and then someone at the club who doesn't even represent the club or own the club, but someone who's just at the club as a person transfers some marijuana to another person, because person A had to pay the money, person A and person B had to pay money to get into said building to then transfer marijuana freely to one another, they could be guilty of delivering money for, or delivering marijuana for a fee, of selling marijuana illegally. Are you getting this? If Bob comes to my house in Anchorage and I reach into my jar of weed and I give him an ounce of weed at my house in Anchorage and I hand it over to him, that's perfectly legal. But if I join a private club where I have to pay a $5 or a $10 monthly fee to go into this place, and Bob pays a $10 monthly fee to go into this place, and we conduct the exact same sharing transaction between the two of us, because we are in a place that we paid money to get into, that transaction becomes illegal. We could stand out in the freaking parking lot before we went into the club and trade that marijuana. But we couldn't go into the place where no one could see us and IDs are checked so kids can't get in. No, you can't do it there. Jeez. How far are these people willing to go in rejecting what is so plainly obvious? We just need to have pot clubs. Now, the good news is that the states that are pushing for marijuana legalization in 2016, most of them, the MPP, well, I think all of them have some version of the possibility of pot clubs. And how likely that is varies. Like Maine, I'm pretty sure we're going to have pot clubs in Maine. It's expressly in the licensing. California is like something like after 2020, the legislature could consider blah, blah, blah. But some of these places are finally starting to recognize that, hey, you can't legalize marijuana and not give us a place to smoke it. And the more restrictions and the more they keep trying to, keep this horse in the barn, the more illogical it gets, to the point where you're asking people to do things contrary to what you'd actually want. Have people make legal transactions in parking lots, but not inside private clubs. To have a law that says consumption will be allowed at a place that does sell pot, but not at a place that doesn't. These regulators are just going to have to eventually learn the dynamics of what cannabis consumption is all about. We are a social people. We have joint circles, man. We have smoke sessions. We have safety meetings. All of these things imply groups. It's not that people don't smoke cannabis on a solitary basis, but it does have a tendency to make people social, make people want to gather. Hell, all people want to be social. All people want to gather to some extent among people that have their same beliefs and their same culture and lifestyle. Well, I hope this battle doesn't take too long. Every public consumption ticket that we get because there's no place to smoke pot legally is one too many. All right, folks, I think I almost made it through the 2 hours here, although my voice is almost gone. Help, help. We'll take a break and wrap things up right after these messages.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Forwarding the cause of legalization and research of the growing cannabis industry, one podcast at a time. The Cannabis Radio Network.
Play as Ted Growing, expelled botany sophomore and the biggest grower in town, only on Weed Firm Replanted. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
It's a lot of work being the biggest grower in town. Maintaining a room full of plants while dealing with a slew of eccentric customers? From a hardcore partier to the curious neighbor next door.
Is anybody home?
Help me expand my bud business by unlocking new strains, customizing my grow room, and completing challenges that you can't get enough of. Grow your empire so big you can see it from space. Low on funds? Don't worry. Weed Firm Replanted is free to download.
Download Weed Firm Replanted for free on the App Store and Google Play today. Get growing, Mr. Growing.
The political climate is at a fever pitch, and the fight for the social fabric of America is set for battle this November. Tuesday, November 8th, the cannabis liberation movement takes a huge step forward, and Cannabis Radio is here to chronicle this legendary moment. CannabisRadio.com and the Cannabis Radio News team will feature wall-to-wall live coverage of all the coast-to-coast voting of state amendments, ballots, propositions, and initiatives that will further progress the cannabis crusade. Join us November 8th for Vote 2016, The Path to Cannabis Freedom, only on CannabisRadio.com.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
I opted for convenience to use my personal email account.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of The Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 55 after the hour, just closing up shop here in beautiful legal Portland, Oregon. I can't believe it's September already. Elections are coming quickly. And don't forget that on November 8th, Marijuana Election Night 2016 coverage will be here all day live on CannabisRadio.com. I plan on being in Sacramento at the headquarters for Prop 64. If Sacramento is indeed where they're going to be, I don't know where their headquarters are, but we'll find that out soon. And we're going to have marijuana activist reports from every state voting on reform. And that includes not just the 5 voting on legalization. We got California, Arizona, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Maine. The 4 voting on medical, Florida, Arkansas, Montana, and North Dakota. We'll also have reports from Colorado, Denver on the Social Use Initiative and other initiatives related to local control. We've got local control initiatives going on in Oregon where all of these western counties that banned commercial licensees have to face a vote of the people. So we'll bring you the coverage of that. I think there are some Washington issues that we may need to cover, not the least of which would be Stephanie Viskovich running for state representative in Seattle. We've also got Carrie Boiter, her campaign, running for state representative in Montana that we'll be bringing you. And coverage of the Northern Mariana Islands, although I got to admit, I may not be able to find an activist to dial in from the Northern Mariana Islands, and we may not cover that live because I don't know what the hell time zone that is. I'm not going to be up all night, folks, but that coverage is coming to you on Tuesday, November 8th, Marijuana Election Night 2016, right here on CannabisRadio.com. Well, folks, that's about all the time I got for today and about all the voice I have left for today, but thanks for sticking with me as I try to get over whatever the hell it was that took me down. We'll be back tomorrow with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community, but we will be off on Monday for Labor Day. I know, I'm such a slacker. Did I just take 3 days off? We will be back on tomorrow with another Cannabis Radio episode for you. Coming up next Tuesday, Sam Mendez from the University of Washington on his research on children and edibles. We'll get a Hemp Day report on Wednesday from Doug Fine. And on Thursday, another great guest from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed.